Hi, Martin Yusuf here. Today I'm talking about an internal safe place and resourcing yourself and building the idea of feeling safe inside your body. Now, this is such a fundamental and basic idea to recovery from trauma. It's actually the first step to recovery from trauma. And when people go on a search to resolve the past, if they have flashbacks and images that are troublesome to them from trauma that they've experienced from the past, if they don't have this internal safe place, a feeling of safety that is built inside them from within, then they'll get panic attacks and suffer from anxiety. And you go to the doctor and the doctor gives you antidepressants and antipsychotics, but they don't actually relieve it because the mind needs to be convinced that it's actually safe. And we do this through a visualization technique, we do this through sometimes breathing, and we do this through feeling. So it's a creative process. And one of the problems where people fall down is it's not an internal safe place. Their sense of safety and security comes from the world, or it comes from other people, or it comes from a support group. And invariably these people let them down, or these groups let them down. And the internal safe place, one of the first benefits is it stops anxiety. So if you're having panic attacks because your mind doesn't know that you're not being traumatized anymore, then the internal safe place is the first step of the recovery from trauma. And attempting to take on any process, whether it be eye movement or brain spotting or tapping or emotional freedom, whatever the technique you use, if you don't have this safety in place, this idea of safety, your mind will not want to go there. I mean, your ego will want it to be resolved. The ego just wants things fixed, and it doesn't actually understand the subtlety of anything. And so you can head in there with your mind and head in there into your pain, and that will just create more trauma. And you could have a nervous breakdown, or anything could happen if you're not safe within yourself. And the thing about feeling safe in yourself is it happens in stages, and you develop a little bit of the idea of an internal safe place, and then you'll be able to deal a little bit more of the trauma. And your deeper mind, or your subconscious mind, will not allow you to go into those places where you've been heavily traumatized or you're suffering. Your mind will not allow you to go in there until you feel really safe anyway. And if you fight and you're defensive, that's an indication that you don't feel safe enough to deal with that. And you can go and sit in a psychologist's office, but if you don't feel safe, you won't actually get very far, because you'll just project your feelings and your ideas onto them. And so this internal safe place, how do we do it? Very good question. Well, what we do is we imagine a place where we feel very safe. And it cannot be connected to any of your old ideas. So, for example, if you were led to believe that the church was a safe place and you were abused by a priest, then you cannot use religion or that idea of safety if it has any negative associations with it. And when people are traumatized and they're in pain, they'll separate themselves from the group, and they'll go to places where they're just alone and isolated. But all the negative associations with the trauma, they're all in that sense of safety. So when I do this work with people, when I help people find this internal safe place, the subconscious mind brings up signs and images that maybe consciously you wouldn't be very familiar with as a term of safety. For instance, I was brought up as a Roman Catholic, don't hold that against me, but the first image that I got was a Buddha. Now, I'm not a Buddhist and I'm not a Catholic. I just have a spiritual set of ideas and that work for me. But it brought up this Buddhist thing because I had no negative associations with Buddhism. There was no Buddhism when I was growing up. There was only Catholicism and Christianity. So when it brought up this Buddha, it brought up an image of a gold Buddha, and that was a safe place. And that I placed that image of a gold Buddha inside myself, around my solar plexus. and I went into that gold Buddha whenever I felt frightened or traumatized. And within about, I'd say, 2 or 3 days of actually really trying to do this exercise, my world changed, because I'd been frightened all the time. I just walked around, I was in a traumatized state, I was fearful of everyone and everything. I had such a high level of anxiety that the first fruits of actually doing this safe place exercise properly was the anxiety went and the panic attacks went. I was coming off antidepressants and antipsychotics. So, I was seeing an EMDR specialist, and doing this safe place protocol was the beginning of it. And I beg of you to do the safe place protocol before you really embark on looking at your deep trauma, because if you don't have a safe place, whatever your propensities towards self-destruction, whether it's self-harming, cutting, drinking, drugs, whatever it is, they will get worse. Because addictions and harming yourself, addictions are about harming yourself and not feeling safe. So, once you've got this real safe place on board, your mind will slowly unload the trauma, and it will help you find ways of dealing with this and healing it. So the safe place is extremely important, and it's important to get this technique. And there's some EMDR techniques which are sort of very similar to neuro-linguistic programming that can help you create a safe place from within. But I mean, an internal safe place is not with modern psychology. It began going back to the Buddha or even Christianity, going inside into your heart and feeling love. Now, this will not be sufficient enough to deal with deep trauma and to change your neural pathways to adjust to the fact that you're no longer suffering from the traumatic incidents that you were suffering from in the past. But it is a starting place, and it will help. But the idea is, if you're going to do this, that you have to get all your mind and all your intention inside this place, inside your body. So you've got to focus inside your body. So I've just explained just briefly this internal safe place, and if you really want the technique, I'll be happy to share it with you if you want to join me on my website. But this internal safe place, if you're suffering from trauma, is the beginning of recovery from trauma. And even if you go and see psychologists or psychiatrists, if you haven't done this, this is the first step of recovery. And thank you for listening. My name is Martin Youssef. Please join me on my website, Martin Youssef, www.martinyoussef.com. Thanks.